To work on the back fender, I've added this image number 13 here. And let's zoom in with the period key. And what I'd like to do is just add some edge loops to extrude out two of these grooves here on the top of the fender. And then maybe do a little extruding to get some of this on the edge. Let's see what we can do. I'll tab into edit mode, and if I press Control R and scroll the mouse wheel, maybe we can add 4 edges right here. And then it looks like it comes down pretty close to the edge, so maybe I'll add an edge loop right here and an edge loop right down here. And then what we can do is in face mode, we can select this face and then control click this one, and that will select everything between those. And then shift click that one, and then control click that one, and that will select all of those as well. Now, I think we should probably extrude these up, but I think we're going to have to scale them out a bit too. They appear to come out in alignment with the surface here, because if I hit extrude here, let's just do this. I'll hit E and pull up in the Z-axis. You can see how it kind of pulls toward the center, and there's a little bit of that going on, but I think what I'd like to do is maybe scale out in the Y with S and Y. Then I'll hold the Shift key down to kind of move it out a bit like that. And then I'd like to move these in the X. Let's see if we can change to individual origins here. And then scale in the X, S and X. And then individually, you see those will scale together rather than moving all of it all into itself. So let's maybe bring it in about like that. Let's try that. And then if we go to edge mode and alt-click this edge out here, maybe we can do a little bit of extruding just to kind of hint at this kind of an edge here. We've got a couple of grooves here. So maybe if we hit E and pull down in the Z, now it looks like we're going to have to scale in the Y because these are going straight down. So let's hit S and Y and kind of pull those in a bit like that. There we go. And maybe we can pull them out a bit in the X. Let's try that. Now maybe if we bring it back up, so let's hit E, and I'll try and pull it up a bit and out, and maybe let's scale again in the Y to bring these back out. So S, Y, pull those back out like this. It's kind of hard to tell if it's actually working. I think it is. There we go. Yeah. Okay, so now we've pulled that up. Let's pull another one down. Let's hit E and click, and then let's pull down in the Z and pull out in the X. And maybe that's all we need there. Let me scale in the Y just a little bit more, S and Y, and I'll bring those in just a bit like that. Maybe a little bit more, S, Y, in like that. There we go. So we've got something like that. We've got just a little bit of a hint of some ridges here, and we've got those two extrusions coming up in the middle. Now let's add a little bit of thickness to this. Let's just come over here to the modifiers panel, and let's click on solidify. Now I should probably apply the scale to this. So let's press Control A and apply the scale, and that helps a bit there. And then let's click on even thickness, and click and drag in the thickness field until we get it about the way we want it. It's pretty thin, so maybe something like that. All right, let's try that. And then let's go ahead and smooth it. I'll come up here to Object, Shade Smooth. All right, let's go back down to our object data and turn on Auto Smooth. And let's drag up and see what we can get here. So we get it pretty smooth like that. That may be a little bit too much. Let's bring it back down and see if we can maybe about in here, something like that. But then also maybe we could grab these here and maybe bevel these. So let's try that. Let's go to edge mode and press Alt and click this edge and this one and this one. Here, here, here. And also these on this side. So this one and this one right there. Now let's try and bevel these. So Control B, and let's bring these out and maybe scroll the mouse wheel one time to get that kind of a curve. Yeah, that gives it a little bit more of a curve there, kind of like that. All right, I think I can live with that. Yeah, let's do that. So let's come over here to the modifiers panel and let's go ahead and apply this solidify. I'll click apply here. And then if we take this, move the origin to the 3D cursor in the center of the grid, set origin 3D cursor, and then let's go ahead and add that mirror modifier here. Oh, it looks like we need to apply the rotation, Control A, and rotation. All right, so there we have the rear fenders. I think that's going to work. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Let's now work on this front piece right up here. There's a piece right just on one side. And let me zoom in. Here we go. So we can see it here. This and this right here, that's what it is. We don't have it on the other side. So if we're going to create a Boolean and do this, we're going to need to apply the mirror modifier before we do it, because whatever we do on one side happens on the other. And of course, for this, it isn't on the other side. So let's go ahead and with this hood selected, let's apply the mirror modifier. Now we need to make sure that clipping is turned on. Let's click apply. And now let's go ahead and find a place where we can create this cylinder to cut that hole. So if we go to the front view and hit the Z key and go to wireframe, it looks like it's right about here, right? So let's go to that cursor tool, click right in here, and now let's create a cylinder at that point. Let's press Shift A, cylinder, and we don't need 32. Let's make it 24. Let's make it fairly smooth so it isn't real jagged around the edges. And then let's take this down to 0.1, 0.4 maybe, something like that. And let's turn on the move gizmo and let's rotate around the x-axis, RX90. There we go. And let's scale down and kind of put it in place here. So it looks like, at least for the image, it's about right here. We may have to move it a bit on the 3D model itself, but let's try that. And then let's go back to solid mode and let's take a look at how deep this should be. I think that's a little bit too much. It doesn't go in quite that far, maybe about to here. Let's try that. And also, it looks like it's pretty close to the edge here. Being this close to the edge with a Boolean could be a little bit dangerous. Let's move it out from the edges here so it has a little bit more room to work. Yeah, something like that. All right, so let's select that hood and fender object, and then let's go to add modifier and create a Boolean. Let's click on the eyedropper and click on the cutter right there, and then let's click apply. And there we go. So now let's grab that cutter and let's pull it out and see how we did. Yeah, that's pretty good. So if we select that, we may be able to smooth that up some more. Because when we create this, those new faces don't have the same smoothing as the rest of the object. So all we need to do is just come over here and just add shade smooth, and that'll clean that up some. Okay, so now we need to add something in there, that little cylindrical thing there. We can use this for that. We can just go ahead and use it for the interior piece. So if we tab into edit mode and grab that face, we should be able to delete that. And let's scale in the Y quite a bit, S and Y. And then also we just need to scale it down some. So let's just scale it down a bit so it can fit in there easily. Let's move that in and zoom in with the period key. And maybe it just needs to go in about that far, like that. I'll push it in just a little bit because I want to extrude out to get this little rim here, whatever that is. I'm going to bring it in just a bit, tab into edit mode, and what I'll do is I'll hit the I key and inset in just a bit, and then let's just extrude out like this. Just out a bit like that. So we get a little bit of a rim there. And then we also need to deal with this thing. Now it looks like from this angle, it's got kind of a curve on the top. So, okay, we can work with that. Let's tab into edit mode and let's select this part of the cylinder with Control plus. I'll just expand that selection. And then I'm going to duplicate, Shift D and Enter, and then I'm going to pull this out like this, and that's going to be our new piece right here. Let's go ahead and split that out into a new object to make it a little bit easier to work with. And then let's select it. Now, we're going to need to take at least half of that out, aren't we? So if we go to the front view here, and I'm going to go to wireframe, and let's tab into edit mode and go to face mode, we can select that face in the center, first of all, and get rid of it. Let's press X and delete faces, and then let's border select these faces like this and get rid of these, X and delete faces. And now, if we take a look at it, we just have this here. And we may not even need all of those. So let's just get rid of maybe these like this, X and delete faces. And then this is all we need. So let's move the origin to this geometry. And let's just bring it down. Maybe scale it out in the Y just a bit. Let's bring this in and let's put it here. And then we just need to fill in there. So what let's do is tab into edit mode, grab this edge and this edge. And then with those two selected, let's press Control E and bridge edge loops right here. And that'll create a face there. And then we can select this edge all the way around the front and hit F, and that'll fill that as well. So now, I think that's what we want. I'm going to press S and Z and kind of flatten it just a bit more and scale it out a bit like this. Let's make sure it's kind of in the center there. Something like that. And there we go. So now we have that piece. It looks like it's out a little bit farther, so I'll bring it out like that. Now let's join it. I'll select this and press Control J. And then I'll shift select this, the actual hood and fender, and press Control J. And that will join it with that whole object. And now let's smooth it. Shade smooth, and there we go. All right, so we've got that. I think we're pretty close to being done. There is, of course, a lot more that we can add to this, but I think it's time for us to move on to the next part of the project. And that is, we need to begin combining all of these together in a strategic way, of course, and then begin UV mapping it, because we're going to need to apply 2D textures. We're going to take this into Substance Painter and create textures. But of course, before we do that, we need to create our UV maps. And in the next part of the course, we'll begin doing that.